Hey folks, Amanda here. Just a quick heads up that from time to time, the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast does include some adult language. So if you've got kids with you, you may just want to hold on to this episode to listen to a little later. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. I'm Amanda Solman, and along with Mark Jewell, your host for this show and the creator of the Surviving to Thriving movement. Each week, we'll dive into the mindsets that keep us in survival mode and learn how to get on the path to a truly thriving life. If you're looking for a wake-up call and want some valuable tools to get there, you have come to the right place. After all, survival is dead. It's your time to thrive today. Now, let's head over to the show.
Okay, everybody. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. This is your host and founder of the Surviving to Thriving movement, here with another great episode for you today. Guys, this is really a special treat. We had somebody reach out to us recently about interviewing them and having them on the show, and we decided to move ahead because as I read the profile on this gentleman, it felt like there were some things that would be really, really valuable for our community here within the Thrive Today community, and I'm super excited to dive in and learn from and pull from and see just what kind of information we can all glean from our guest today. So I want to welcome on Nitin Chhoda. Did I get the name right? Is that how?
Yes, Mark.
Very good.
Yes, Mark, you did. Thank you.
Perfect. With total activation. And really with a number of successful businesses under his belt at this point. I'm going to let him divulge a little bit more detail about his background here in a minute. But I'm inspired by this guy just in the few minutes that we've gotten to know each other in our quick Skype conversation before we started recording the episode and reading about his background, because here's a guy who came to America 15 years ago willing to do whatever it took to literally go from surviving in his career to a place where he's thriving and having a massive impact on the world. So Nitin, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being in here. And I'm excited to learn. So give my audience, give our Survivor's Guide to Thriving crew a little more background, if you would, just like you did with me. And let's get to know you.
Mark, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think, to be honest, I live the American dream. I moved to the U.S. in 2002 in a post 9/11 world. I moved to the U.S. to work in a fitness center, and it was very soon that I actually lost my job because the place wasn't doing well. I was told that I was told by the boss, and there were two of us, and his exact words, and I quote, were, "One of us has to go, and it can't be me." Wow. So here I am, an immigrant, with having no one, knowing no one, with pretty much no savings, and through a series of fortunate events, I was able to, build a business and sort of build my future in America. But I've been through a lot. Slept in my car. Lived in a studio apartment with 4 other roommates just so that we could, pay the bills. Didn't have enough clothes to buy, didn't have enough money, to buy clothes in the winter. Delivered pizza, not because I did it to earn extra money, but because I knew I could get the leftover pizza at the end of the day, and that was my meal because I couldn't afford a meal. And so having been through all of that, as I was telling you before we started recording, having been through all of that and now working from home, employing more than 30 people all over the world, working from home, running several multi-million-dollar businesses, I think, like I said, I am the American dream. I live the American dream, and I believe to the very core of my being that America is the greatest country in the world, and the kind of opportunities I've had, Mark, I wouldn't have had anywhere else in the world. But I think the 3 things that made it work, one was the fact that I'm a hustler. I'm always trying to do things better than the next person, evolving, changing, adapting. Number two, my approach towards money, which I think is an interesting conversation that we could have,
Mm-hmm.
which evolved. I used to have what I call a poverty mindset, and now I
Mm-hmm.
have what I call wealth consciousness. And the third aspect is surrounding myself with the right people, whether it was going to workshops, conferences, paying to be part of mastermind groups. Just surrounding yourself with people who are more successful allows you to learn from them and avoid expensive mistakes. So those three things have allowed me to come a long way, despite my humble beginnings.
Wow. That is a fantastic background, Nitin. Thank you for diving into that and really even sharing vulnerably. I mean, there are a lot of people in America today that wouldn't be willing to admit that they may have slept in a car along the way, or that I delivered pizza not only to try to make money, but just so I know I could have at least one meal of something to eat at the end of the day. So I appreciate you sharing that. So the first question that's really coming through to me that I'd love to have you dive into, is what drove you? So you literally sort of I mean, you come here for a job to a new country, to a new place, just learning a new culture, probably getting more comfortable with the language, and then all of a sudden your world gets turned upside down, and that job is pulled out from underneath of you. The thing that was going to keep you safe and secure, at least for the time being, is gone, and now you've gone through a certain what I call hero's journey, if you will, a certain set of extraordinary circumstances, and you've arrived at a new, better version of yourself. But what kept you going in those early days? Was it just survival instinct, just trying to get by, doing whatever it took? Did you always know that you were built for something bigger and better? Like, what was it that kept you pushing forward?
I think I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll answer your question. When I was in middle school, I wanted to buy a bicycle. And my dad was like, yeah, yeah, you're not having it. You're not getting one. And I said to myself, well, if you're not going to buy me one, I'm going to buy one. And then I said to myself, how am I going to make some money? I have no way of making money and no source of income. And then I noticed that my classmates were, drinking Coca-Cola out of these glass bottles.
Mm.
And, this is again, sort of late 80s in India. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I could buy the Coca-Cola from, the grocery store. I could then sell it to my classmates inside my school, which, by the way, was something I wasn't supposed to do, but I did it. I sold them Coca-Cola bottles, and then after they drank the Coca-Cola, they'd give me back the bottles, and I'd take it back to the grocery store to get back the deposit for the bottles, which was my profit.
Hmm.
I was actually able to save enough to buy a bicycle. And the funny story about that is, Mark, I didn't have the common sense to rinse those bottles. So I was the one weird kid in middle school, walking around with books and a bunch of glass bottles in my bag, going clink, 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 clink as I was walking. And there were bugs and ants
Oh
all over
yeah,
my books because I didn't have the common sense to rinse those darn bottles. And the
they were
reason I
covered in
share
sugar.
this, correct. So I had bugs all over my books. I had, people thought that I was, I don't know, some sort of a homeless person walking around with glass bottles in my backpack. But I was able to buy the bicycle. So the reason I share this with you is because I think that all business owners, all entrepreneurs, are sort of looking to do something, looking to challenge the status quo, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could have said, "Gosh, I'm not going to get a bicycle," and I give up, and I don't know, one day I'll dream of getting a bicycle. But I
Yeah.
said, you know what, I'm going to go out and get it. That's it, and I got it. So I think again, this spirit of challenging the status quo, wanting to do something different and better. I think all of us have it. I just think that some of us have the confidence to go ahead and do it regardless of the consequences, and others just sort of hesitate and let the fear get the better of them, right? I think we
Mm.
all
Absolutely.
we all have a capability to do something phenomenal, and I'm not saying I do. I mean, I think I'm a sort of, I'm insignificant in the larger scheme of things. I mean, there's people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, who've, pretty much changed the world, right? And so the short answer to your the short answer to your question is, I've always wanted to do things better and differently, and no matter what it took.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate the answer to your question. And so we have something in common as it pertains to pop and soda cans, bottles, what have you. So in a similar vein, I grew up in central Minnesota, and there was a gentleman who sort of just lived. He was very what I call a subsistence survivor. He just he always knew who needed different things, and so he would find somebody who had the thing that you needed, and then he would kind of find some way to create a trade or something between the people that needed it, and not to make money, not to be sort of a deal broker, but then he would get invited in for meals. And so this is how he ate, is he would literally he would always be at our house. I remember probably 3 or 4 lunches or suppers every single week. And he would sit down and eat with us. Yeah. So this was George Duda was the guy's name. Well, so George, one of the things he would do is he would drive around and pick up these pop cans. If he'd see a pop can on the side of the road, smashed, whatever, he would stop. He had a 5-gallon pail that sat in his little Ford Escort, this tiny little hatchback, 1982 Escort that was sat next to him, and he would. This is in like 1992, right? 1990, 92, kind of right in the probably just a similar time frame to where you were at, and so he would drop. He would. I don't remember why, but he started bringing these cans actually to our house. And so then I would take them and I would put them in bags. And what we do here in this state, there's no deposit rule or law or anything like that. So you take them and you sell them to a recycling facility and you get paid by the pound. Well, at the time, we were getting like 50 or 60 cents a pound, right? And I had a free resource, right? Somebody was literally bringing me the cans. And this actually became my very first business. So
Really?
George would bring the cans, and about every 4 to 6 weeks, we would literally have maybe 200, 300, 400 pounds of cans to go to the recycling center and sell. And when I was 10 years old, selling, 300 pounds of cans at 50 cents a pound, and taking home that $150 check, I felt rich.
Wow.
It was so easy, but
And
that's literally how I got my start, like my very first business. What's kind of funny is I took it, well, it's not funny, but I took it for granted because it was so easy. Right? And I didn't really, it was just another one of those things that kind of happened in my life, but it's just interesting. So we've got something related to our starting our first business and making money as it pertains to the Coca-Cola
I
industry.
love it. I
Yeah.
love it. That's such a strange coincidence, but I love it. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about what is that mindset of the entrepreneur for you? A lot of our audience obviously is corporate, and they, may be running a division or running a team or working as a part of the team or eventually want to be in that team leadership role. So by my definition, I call most of the folks that we work with enterprise entrepreneurs. Many of them work on commission, and it's just as, very, very similar from an entrepreneurial standpoint to what you and I do as far as what most of our listeners do. So talk to me a little bit about how do you, define entrepreneur? How do you prepare, for the best and the worst? How do you make it through and enlighten us a little bit, if you would?
We were talking about the relationship between the entrepreneur and money.
Yeah,
Did you wanna talk about that?
I think that would be a really good angle to take on that, actually.
Yeah, because obviously I could talk about marketing, I could talk about product development, I could talk about hiring, and all of those things matter. But I think the thing that is close to my heart, that has been the game changer for me personally, and I think you and I sort of talked about that, is about money. So, Mark, in my opinion, there are two kinds of individuals. There are individuals who have what I call a poverty consciousness. And I used to be that way. My mom, actually, who lives with us, is still that way. She's amazing, but that's mom. And there are individuals with what I call wealth consciousness. Now, I'll help you understand the difference between the two. A person with poverty consciousness feels that it's hard to make money, is unable to make money work for him or her. I'll explain what that means when I get to the wealth consciousness part. Uh, is sort of definitely looking to save money, but is more concerned about saving money and has more of a scarcity mindset as opposed to trying to make money. I'll give you one example. My mom says, "Why are you traveling business when you fly? Why don't you travel economy? You'll save some money." And I say to her, "Listen, I know I'm spending a few $100s extra when I fly business, but it's not because I like wasting money. When I fly business, I can think more clearly. I can get work done. I can, relax a little bit. And that's when the best ideas come to me. I can have I've actually had conversations with people when I fly business that have resulted in me making tens of thousands of dollars, just by virtue of an aha moment. So, so I think, again, back to individuals with poverty consciousness. Individuals with poverty consciousness um, they tend to actually, and this is a strange one, Mark, they actually get physically uncomfortable with lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why individuals who win the lottery, lose it quickly. They get scammed, or they don't know what to do with it, or they waste it, or they individuals who have a poverty consciousness actually tend to waste money on things that are not going to make them money. We all know of somebody who got a raise and then went out and bought a car they couldn't afford, right?
Right.
As opposed
Absolutely.
to using it to start a business, or
Mm-hmm.
invest in a business, or invest in something that's going to make them more money 10, 15, 20 years. Individuals with poverty consciousness think about the immediate benefit of money. And this is another, this is the last one. Individuals with poverty consciousness tend to think that there's a linear relationship between how good you are as a person and how much money you make. Now, this is a strange one because it's a little meta. If money was related to morality, then all pastors would be rich, all school teachers would be rich, drug dealers would be poor.
Right.
People who sell porn would be poor. I'm not saying you do those things. What I'm saying is, and I'll flip now to wealth consciousness. Individuals with wealth consciousness understand that money moves to them when they create massive, life changing, transformational value for other people,
You
right?
bet. You bet.
When you create a service or a product that transforms people, we're not just talking about helping people or giving them what they already have. I'm talking about a transformation. Then you attract money. When you do something that's completely unexpected, that's personalized, then you can start to attract money towards you. Individuals with wealth consciousness think of money as think of each dollar bill as a soldier that works for them, that goes out and helps make them more money. Individuals with wealth consciousness understand that they need to create circumstances
Right.
that obviously help a lot of people, but then those circumstances cause money to move to them. A lot of that actually has to do with celebrity and being famous. I'm not talking about Kim Kardashian famous or paparazzi famous. I'm talking about being famous within your own network, within your own community. If you're a doctor and you're across the street from another doctor, it doesn't matter whether you're a better doctor than the other doctor. What matters is
Mm-hmm.
which doctor is more famous, who's more well known, who's
Mm-hmm.
been featured on the cover of a magazine, or who's sort of famous. That doctor is going to have a longer wait list, right? I'm not saying that you need to deliver poor quality service, but what I'm saying is, as you become successful, as you become extremely successful, what you do is less important to the market as compared to what they perceive you as,
Mm-hmm.
which is very crucial, right?
Right.
And individuals with wealth consciousness obviously want to create a transformation in people, but they do understand that they're not going to change everybody. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
transform every life. They focus on the transformation of a number of people that they can transform, and they do that well, and they actually have what I call as a wealth consciousness, which means as they start making more and more and more and more money, they actually invest that money to make them even more money, which is very important. I'll give you an example in my personal case. I have 4 businesses. When business one became successful, I took the money from that business. I didn't go out and buy a fancy car or anything. By the way, I drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic. Okay, so I could buy a Tesla, I could buy whatever. I just don't, because
Right.
what I do is I take and my wife's like, why don't you get a better car? I'm like, my car has two important attributes which are, which I care for. One, it has 4 wheels,
Yeah.
and two, it starts in the morning when I,
When I wanted to go somewhere.
to start. So, so for me, business one, the profit from business one was allocated to business two, which was a bigger business. Business two's profit was allocated to business three, and all the businesses. So each business becomes sequentially bigger in terms of the volume it does, in terms of the people it hires. I mean, in terms of the people it employs, and so I try and make the money work for me. And I think one last thing, individuals with wealth consciousness, and this again, not everyone will like hearing this, but individuals with wealth consciousness do not work with, or try not to work with, individuals with a poverty consciousness. What I mean by that is, if you're, let's say you're hiring, I don't know, somebody, or maybe a family member, but if that person has what I call as poverty consciousness, you have to make an active effort to not have people like that around you, because they'll hold you back in your business.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that individuals who have poverty consciousness are scared of asking for money. They feel they don't deserve money, whereas individuals with wealth consciousness, A, deliver a service,
Right.
B, transform people, C, they're famous or semi-famous, and D, I'm sorry about that. So D, they ask for money without any fear, without any guilt, without any shame, because they feel they deserve it. Whereas individuals with the poverty consciousness are scared of asking for money. If you go to the doctor's office and the person at the front desk looks at you in the eye and says, you owe $45. Would you like to pay by cash, check, or credit card? What are you going to say? You're going to be like, here's my card. But if the person behind the desk was like, did you know you have a balance? Could you take care of it? And then you'll probably say, you know what, send me a bill.
Yeah.
Or I don't have my card.
Yep.
So, again, I know I've gone off in multiple directions, but I think my own evolution from a poverty mindset to a wealth consciousness mindset has been the number one single factor that's allowed me to build bigger businesses, pay my employees well so that they make more money, and result in an abundance mindset all around it. Trust me, I didn't have an abundance mindset. I grew up with a scarcity mindset.
Right. Well, and that was the piece that I wanted to focus in on next, Nitin, because sometimes if you're working at a company, you don't get to necessarily choose the person that sits next to you, and you don't get to interview all of them before you go to work there and say, hey, does everybody at this company have wealth consciousness or not? I mean, almost nobody in the corporate space is having that level of conversation. You and I
Sure.
have gone to probably a lot of the high-level entrepreneurial masterminds where that's almost all we talk about, and you're making sure you surround yourself with people that earn more than you, that you can learn from, that know more than you, that are more driven than you, because you then elevate with that group. So if the 5 people that surround me at work aren't necessarily as wealth conscious as I'm now learning maybe they should be, or that would be ideal if they were, how can I overcome that? So maybe just walk us through your story. How did you discover that you were in a poverty mindset, and then what did it take to make that leap, that transition into wealth consciousness for you?
I think that there are signs that someone is in a poverty mindset. Like I mentioned, you're thinking of saving money as opposed to making money. You don't understand it takes money to make money. And by the way, I'm talking about myself. I was the way I was 10 years ago. You feel you don't deserve money. That's a big one. That's a big one. And I think I personally know of individuals who, when they make more than X amount of money, so let's say you make $4,000 a month. If you make 6 or 7 because you got a bonus or you worked overtime, you actually feel physically uncomfortable and you somehow blow that money. So we all know people like that. So I used to be like that. I think that the way that changed was going to these networking conferences, going to interacting with pioneers, interacting with people who are more successful than me, and just learning their ways, being around them, soaking up information. I'm fortunate that I have the ability to talk to people who have sort of become successful. And when I say successful, I don't just mean money. I mean they're good people, they're humble, they're kind, and I think that sort of teaches you a lot. So I think as you grow up, the kind of people that are around you, and I'm talking about beyond your parents, beyond your siblings, your friends, your colleagues, they matter a lot. And
Yeah.
if you don't have the kind of colleagues that have wealth consciousness, that's fine. Make sure you attend conference. Listen, we live in an age where you could go to YouTube, you could listen to Anthony Robbins, you could read books. So again, I would identify 2 or 3 people you most want to be like, right?
Right. Yep.
And I would read their books. I would listen to their podcasts, like everyone's doing right now. They're listening to your podcast. I would watch videos on YouTube, and I would make a conscious effort to soak in their knowledge, because that's how you grow.
You bet. I love it. I mean, thank you for diving into that a little bit for us. So guys that are listening in, here's just something to kind of pay attention to, right? So, I started undergoing probably about 3 years ago, Nitin, a very similar transformation of my own, where it was pointed out to me by my coach. Even though I was driven and building a business and was kind of on the verge of creating more wealth consciousness in my life, still making a lot of kind of poor decisions, and even to this day, right, I still find myself even more comfortable trying to make the month come together than I am planning for 12 months from now, right, or investing out into the future. And so that's just, for a lot of us in our programs, we talk about your 95% and how so much of your hardwiring happens before you even turn 10 years old. So that feels, you may be more comfortable even to this day with wealth. Like if you were down to your last $50, you'd know what to do, right? But if you had that next 50,000, now I have to go read a book, right? I have to learn how to work with that in my life. And so that's a little bit different. So to bring this back to the group that we're talking to, all the listeners of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast, I just want you to think about, who do you know? Who are some of those people around you that are just literally surviving every single month? I mean, they're literally maybe stopping off to just grab a pull tab or a lottery ticket every day in the hopes that that thing is going to work for them. That becomes their investment strategy. Right? They're relying on the markets or relying on the 401k to pan out for them. And we could probably go into a whole nother podcast about how to invest your money and how to make money work for you, right? But one of the things, just pay attention to those people around you and how they're doing that. If every extra dollar or every extra dime goes to a new snowmobile or a new boat or a new motorcycle or a new toy or something else, it's a pretty good indicator that there's a poverty mindset going on.
And you know what? You're right. And I think there are three things at work here. And I know this because I've lived in India. I grew up in India, and I moved to the US. One, I think, is the desire to buy stuff and the desire to have good stuff. And honestly, for me, doesn't matter. My MacBook Pro is 6 years old. My car is 10 years old. I actually buy my t-shirts on sale at Kohl's, and I I buy my shoes at Costco, right? I mean, so for me, I don't feel the need to have more stuff, right? And I think that when you live in America, you're surrounded by so many amazing products and services, and your neighbor has this. You mentioned a snowmobile. You feel the need to have it too. And honestly, I have a 3-year-old son, and I look at my son. He has his own iPad. I don't want him to be that way. That's part of what I need to do as a parent. But for me, I think, again, the three things. One, the fact that you're in America, you live in America, there's temptation around you. Number two, the fact that I think that we all grow up with what I call as negative programming. We grow up not being taught about how to handle money.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, we're taught about how to be good moral citizens, develop our skills, but no one teaches us about money, which I think is something that becomes a parent's responsibility to teach a child. And honestly, number three is um, the whole sort of business and entrepreneurial mindset is something that I wouldn't say you either have it or you don't, but it's something again that I think parents should teach to their children. If my son wants to make money, I'll tell him to stand outside our house with a lemonade stand, stand out in the hot sun all day, and see how hard it is to make $5 or $10 before you tell me you want a $300 bicycle. So I think that a lot of it. I'm fortunate because my mom, sort of pretty much gave me a lot of confidence and made me believe I could do anything. But she didn't teach me business. I kind
Sure.
of figured it all out on my own. Spent a lot of money, made a lot of mistakes to get to a certain point. So I think we as Americans living in America, we A, need to learn about money. B, we need to overcome our own negative programming. And three, we need to learn how hard it is to be a business owner, and we need to struggle. I mean, honestly, I feel the people who go door to door selling stuff, they have the biggest and the most, they have a bigger competitive advantage than someone who's gone to Harvard or Yale, because they know what it means to hustle. They
Mm.
know what it means to survive and and sort of hit the pavement. And those experiences that I had when I was struggling are what have allowed me to keep my feet on the ground today.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It certainly does. And so one of the pieces that I just want to really pull out of that for everybody, because if there's somebody listening to this that's been through one of our programs or that's really tuning into what's just one thing I can do every single day, one of the things you mentioned is trying to start to correct that the negative programming, right? That gets programmed. So a lot of us, we're programmed to believe that accessing money is hard, that money is always scarce, that there's never enough, that it's something that other people have, right? And so we're big believers around here in affirmations. My kids are even doing affirmations. My wife is doing a long a century bike ride, 100-mile bike ride last weekend, using affirmations to push herself through the last 10 miles
Wow.
in order to finish it out. So we're big believers in that, and using that as a daily practice to reprogram the programming that you have upstairs into your in that CPU that runs your body. And so one of the affirmations I love around money is that avalanches of wealth are flowing toward me each and every day. Avalanches of
Mm,
wealth are flowing toward me each and every day. So if you guys
mhm.
would write that down and start to repeat that back to yourself in your car on the way to work, in your car on the way home from work, on your way to your next client, listen to that statement every morning, look at yourself in the mirror and repeat it to yourself. Avalanches of wealth are flowing toward me each and every day. And if you will do this enough days in a row, do this for 60, 70, 80, 90 days in a row, and what you're going to start to find is eventually you're going to start to believe it. And what we believe is that where attention goes, energy flows, right? So let's start
And
focusing on the good stuff.
I love it. I love it. I would just add one thing to it. I would add, I deserve it, and I'm going to make it work for me.
Fantastic. I feel like we work well together.
Mhm.
This is good. All right, so
You set the tone.
here's one thing that I want to kind of transition into, because so much of what we talk about is how do we start making it work for me? How do we start to attract more of that, right? And that comes from being successful in some ways, right? So let's find ways to do that. And one of the things that it sounds like you've been really successful at is building and managing teams, and in many cases remote teams. And so a lot of our folks can really relate to that, because in many cases we're spread out maybe across the country or across several counties at least. We don't see each other in an office space. Almost none of my clients, or none of my audience, Nitin, are seeing each other every day. My team, Amanda, who you interacted with, is in Michigan. Wade is 90 miles away from where I live. We have another guy in Minnesota, and then a growing team of contractors that are all over the place. So we don't see each other. We do virtual stuff. We do Zoom communication and things like that. So talk to us about, what is important for you as you're building your remote teams. You mentioned you have 30 people that work for you all over the globe. So talk to us a little bit about that. How are you making that happen successfully?
So you mean how do I hire them, or how do I maintain communication with them once they're hired, or both?
I think I'm going to say let's focus in on the communication once you get people on board.
Sure. I actually fly out to meet my team. My goal is to have at least one face-to-face meeting with my team every year, regardless of where they're located in the world. So I make it a point to deliver that sort of in-person interaction. We still haven't done a team meeting where all my team members get together and everyone meets each other, which is my next goal. But I think, we talk every day on Skype, we do video calls, we do Zoom meetings, like you said, but there's nothing that replaces face-to-face interaction. And that face-to-face interaction is something that we make it a point to try and facilitate as often as we can.
Fantastic. So within your daily communication, is it just about work? Are you incorporating other things into the conversation? What else goes into how do you stay close?
Yeah, it is about work. We have a lot of systems and accountability. At the end of each day, every staff member sends out an email to me answering 4 questions. What they did today, what's their plan for tomorrow, did they have any difficulties or challenges or discomfort with some of the things they did today? Number 4, what suggestion do they have to actually make things better? In other words, how can we keep improving as a company? That, I think, establishes a culture of feedback, accountability that's always been good for us. And as far as getting to know each other and sort of getting to become friends, or people who get to know each other as human beings, we do that when we have the in-person meetings. But during work hours, it's all work, because there's just tons and tons of work to do. We actually don't have time to get to know each other at work because we're all so busy.
Sure. Fantastic. So it sounds like you keep the hustle pretty high. Where did the 4 questions that you brought up? I want you to review those really quick, if you would, because I think that would really serve a lot of our people. But you're the second person that I've heard those from. I think Eben Pagan was the other person that I've heard those from in a webinar somewhere along the way. So just kind of curious where that came from for you, and if you could review those really quick.
Sure. In fact, that is one of the things I actually learned from Eben Pagan at an Eben Pagan conference, and I just implemented that. I think the only one thing we tweaked was, I think Eben said, did you have any difficulty today? So we actually just broadened the 3rd question, and we asked, did you have any difficulty or discomfort with anything you did today? In other words, did they have an interaction with a client that made them uncomfortable? Did they experience an awkward moment with another team member? So we tried to sort of expand that, because I think identifying the discomfort early on, and there's always going to be some discomfort, some awkwardness, because A, you're remote, B, you're working with people you've never met, and C, it's just, there's actually more trust and more accountability in a remote environment. You might think, well, they're working from home, you can kind of, do your own thing. Actually, it's more intense, because you need to be twice as disciplined to work from home. When you're in an office, you can kind of, be like, hey, want to go grab a cup of coffee? Nope. When you're home, you actually got to be spot on all the time, because if someone calls, you have to answer, and you have to be, it's game on at all times. So it's actually something that needs pretty much constant feedback, so that everyone feels heard and no one feels neglected or slighted or ignored.
Fantastic. All right. So the first question was, what did you do today? Correct?
The second question is, the first question is, what did you do today? Yep. The second question is, what is your plan for tomorrow? The third question is, did you face any discomfort or issues or any difficulty today? And the fourth question, hold on, just give me a second. The first question is, what did you do today? The second question is, oh yeah, and the fourth question, I beg your pardon, is what suggestion do you have to make things better and improve our processes going forward? So those are the four questions.
I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I think that's a really good practical resource that people can implement. And just so you guys know that are listening in, where we learned that from is a guy by the name of Eben Pagan, Eben Pagan. And one of the things that he also mentions is, because sometimes when we're asking employees to send us an email every single day, you might even feel like a little awkward or bad, requiring that of some people, because it's one of those things that can get to be sort of routine. It can get to be a little bit redundant or whatever. And the suggestion that he offers is that if you're bringing somebody on board and they're not willing to do what you ask of them, a simple task, just sending you an email that takes 5 minutes, we're not asking you to write a book. Right? It doesn't have to be super, super detailed. If they're not willing to spend 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the day just telling you what they have done and providing some suggestions for how things could get better, then they probably are not a good fit for your team. And so that's where just something for you guys to consider as you're managing and growing your teams and creating standards of accountability. Right.
Sure.
And so I know one of your big things, Nitin, is around accountability and how to set those standards. And it sounds like you have some high standards and demands of your team. So if you would talk to us a little bit about that, how do you set those standards of accountability for your group?
Within our company, we have different project managers associated with different companies. They're the ones who set the standards. They're the ones who make sure that certain standards, like responding to the customer within 4 hours the same day, or if it's towards the end of the day, responding the next day, those standards are met. All calls are returned the same day. We have certain KPIs, key performance indicators, which require that certain things happen. A person gets a response on chat within 90 seconds at the most, and stuff like that. So what we do is we have project managers who set the standards, and then they're the ones who the team is accountable to. And the project managers are the ones who check in with me once in a while if they need some help or if things need to be tweaked a little bit.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, very good. So one thing I'm also want to hit on here that it sounds like you're big on is very much in alignment. So we have a tool that we use with our coaching clients called the Thrive with 5. We all live by it here, which focuses on your health, spirituality, your relationships, what you do for work, what we call occupation, and then your contribution. So it's somewhat similar to your EPSSI principles. So talk to us a little about that and what that means to activate the best version of you.
The total activation philosophy, which is my consumer business and my labor of love, actually, is total activation is a philosophy that combines the best of what Eastern culture has to offer. Mm-hmm. I'm born and raised in India, and the best of what Western lifestyle can offer us. Amazing products, amazing services, FDA approved supplements, sort of research that allows you to sort of live your best self, which, by the way, if you go to other countries like India, pretty much anywhere in the world, people don't have access to the kind of products that we do because, it's America, right? We have good stuff and, we have consumers who demand the best. Mm-hmm. So total activation is a philosophy. It's actually it's actually a series of skincare products and nutritional supplements that work together. But the philosophy, which is what the book is about, is what you said, the EPSSI principle. E for emotional health. Mm-hmm. Do something on a daily basis that makes you happy. It could be going for a walk, going for a drive. Doing something that makes you relax and makes you happy. P for physical. Raising your heart rate, whether it's, again, going for a walk, climbing up the stairs, doing an hour of Zumba, whatever works for you, but doing something on a daily basis. Eating healthy. S for social, surrounding yourself with the right people. And also making sure you step away from the people who pull you back or who drag you down. S for spiritual. Having a sense of purpose, whether it's religion, helping others, paying it forward in some way, understanding that at the end of the day, you're a small part of a much larger universe. And finally, I for intellectual, doing something on a daily basis to challenge your brain, whether it's reading a book, doing a call with a business coach who advises you about something, learning something new, you want to take that to another level, learning a new skill, learning a musical instrument, a new language, perhaps doing something to challenge your brain, because the brain needs to be challenged so it continues firing the way it's supposed to, especially as you grow older. So the EPSSI philosophy, emotional, physical, social, spiritual, and intellectual, is a way for you to live your best self. And the products that we have, the skincare products and the supplements, they complement the philosophy, because we believe in beauty from the inside out. We believe that what you put on your body is as important as what you put in your body. And the two products that you take should work in synergy. A lot of people use, some people use one cleanser, another moisturizer, and then a supplement from, Costco because it was on sale.
Yeah.
But if you use a brand that sort of was designed so that the supplements complement the skincare and vice versa, then you have what I call total activation.
Got it. Wow. So that makes the name make total sense, and I love it. So talk to us a little bit. You sort of alluded to your business there, Total Activation, which is skincare supplementation that activates it by working together. Just tell us a little bit about that company, and and one of the other things that was mentioned in the notes is that you're bootstrapping that startup. And so if I've had some success in some other businesses or have access to some investors, that may be a perceivably faster way to make it happen. So talk to us about the company, and then what is your rationale for taking that approach to launching the business?
Well, so before I became a physical therapist, I used to be a fitness trainer. And before I became a fitness trainer, personal trainer, I was an athlete in school, and I was always into, sports and fitness. And I started taking my first supplement, which was an egg protein supplement, when I was like 12 years old. And so for me, the interest in nutritional supplements and skincare has always been in me since day one. But I think the fast forward all these years, I had the money, the expertise, and the interest to launch a brand of skincare products and nutritional supplements. Now, keep in mind, this is a very competitive industry. There's,
Absolutely.
brands that spend billions of dollars with a B. But I knew that if we had the right formulas in the skincare products, products made with aloe, with organic shea butter, with with coconut oil, with sunflower oil, and if we had nutritional supplements, the best quality whey isolate protein powder, the best fish oils, krill oils, which by the way help skin. Vitamins to enhance your hair, skin, and nails, vitamins for your joints. If we had this sort of a complete system, and so what I did was I meticulously researched all the ingredients. I was able to then come up with the best ingredients for the skin and the best ingredients for from a nutritional standpoint that are not that you don't get in normal day-to-day diet. And I was able to create a brand and sort of present that to the market, and it's been working well for two reasons. One, the products are very, very, very high quality, because we only source the best materials from all over the world. All the products are made in the USA, of course. And number two, I think the philosophy of activating yourself from the inside out using what you put on your body and in your body is something that I believe in, that resonates with people.
Yeah.
Because everyone's sick of trying things that don't work. Everyone's sick of wasting money. Everyone's sick of what I call as a fragmented approach towards health and beauty. So all we wanted to do was to present one simple approach. Here are the 5 things you need to do to take care of your skin. Here are the 5 things you need to do to take care of your skin and your body and your joints from the inside.
Got it.
And a simple approach with simple, affordable products. And we're now selling to customers all over the world. We just last week we launched in the UK and the European Union, and we've already got over 1,000 orders since we launched.
Fantastic. Well, and so getting into the EU in and of itself, I know, is more of a challenge than just opening up here in the US. So that speaks pretty highly for what you guys are doing. That's amazing.
Sure.
Yeah. Fantastic. We'll have to check it out, you guys. So if you are interested in looking at that, it's just totalactivation.com is the right website. Is that accurate?
That's right, Mark. And if any of your listeners visit the site, and I'll help you folks in two ways. This is my way of saying thank you to Mark, and my way of paying it forward for everyone who's listening to the podcast. If you mention Mark's name, or if you mention the podcast, if you want to buy any of our products, we'll send you a discount coupon. That's number one. And number two, if you need any advice on entrepreneurship, or you have any questions for me directly, mention Mark's name and send us a message through the contact us form at totalactivation.com. Mention Mark's name, and I will make sure my team forwards it to me. I will get back to you. I will respond to you. I promise. It may not be right away, but I promise you, as a way of saying thank you to Mark, and as a way of honestly thanking you for listening to this whole podcast, I will help you by answering questions you have as soon as I humanly can.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate that offer, and that's fantastic. So, guys, definitely reach out. Nitin has a mass of knowledge and information to be able to share. I think from anything from building teams to creating wealth and overcoming poverty conscious, and truly what I call a surviving to thriving story, right? So let's do this. Let's close out with one more piece of one more gold nugget from you, if you would. Why is it that you said 3-year-old son? Is it? Mm-hmm. How is he your mentor? And that's so if our behavior affects our children, the generation of tomorrow, how is it that your son is your mentor?
He has taught me the importance of simplicity. His needs are very simple. He sleeps, he eats, he watches some cartoons, he poops, and then he goes back to sleep. So his life's pretty simple. But I think when I interact with him, he's very sort of, obviously as a child, they're very linear in their thinking. I was stern with him once because he was throwing stuff on the floor. Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and he goes, "Papa, say sorry." And I was like, whoa. And then I apologized to him for being stern with him, which kind of shows how smart kids are and how, manipulative they can be. But I think jokes aside, I think, this is my first child. And looking at life through the lens of a 2 and 3-year-old, you kind of realize that at the end of the day, the more simple things are, the more linear they are, right? The simpler and the better your life can be. We tend to make business, life, and relationships pretty complicated, and of course they do get complicated as adults. But he's my mentor because when I look at him, when I play with him, I just realize that it's the little things that matter. I could give my son a brand new iPad, right?
Right.
Or I could just, or which by the way he would like, or I could just, read to him. I could play with him, throw him a little one of these little plastic balls that we have at home. He would jump on the couch up and down after dinner. That actually would give him more happiness than staring at a screen, which then again goes back to teaching you about the importance of simplicity. In business, I'll give you an analogy. My team and I, we can either think about this fancy technology to automatically send an SMS to a customer when their order is delivered and simultaneously trigger another email to them to teach them how to use the product, or we could pick up the phone and call the client and say, "Thank you so much for your order. Is there anything else we can do for you?" Guess what the customer will value more?
Simplicity, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's some really, really solid advice. I have 3 of my own that are my little guy's about just shy of 2 years old. My daughters are 9 and 7, and the lessons that I've personally garnered from them and my interactions with them is some of the best and biggest of my life. So I can relate. Thank you. Appreciate that little bit of insight.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Well, Nitin, any last thoughts? Anything that you'd like to share with the group before we bring this in for a landing? I
would say that, do what your heart tells you to do in business. Do something that you're good at. Surround yourself with the right people. And always make sure that you use the money in your business to grow the business. Don't waste money on stuff that doesn't matter. If you have to go into debt to invest in things that are going to give you a benefit 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, do that. Think of the future. The more far out you think, the more successful you'll be. The more short term you think, the more you'll be struggling to live day by day.
Fantastic. I think there's so much wisdom in that, regardless of whether you own the business or work in the business or run the business or run an aspect of the business. So thank you very much. Guys, this has been Nitin Chhoda, totalactivation.com, www.totalactivation.com. Mention me, mention the podcast if you decide to pick up anything there, or if you have any questions, hit the Contact Us form over on Nitin's website, and he can answer anything in addition to what you have going on there. So, man, thank you for pouring in some greatness for all of us here on the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in this episode by heading over to markjeweltraining.com/podcast. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love it if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. That's what helps us move up in the charts so that more people can find us and start their surviving to thriving journey. See you next week.